Okay, folks, we're going to stand by a few minutes. And by the way, I'm going to give you the opportunity to get into this chat room and ask me some questions. We'll have a little bit of a question answer period, and then we'll get right into the broadcast. I thought we start doing that when we come on early. Now, why are we coming on early? Well, here's what's happened, folks. Our social media platforms have exploded over the past 48 to 72 hours. And I'll share with you why that has happened. So it takes a little time for people to populate each and every one of these platforms that we're on. And I've got some information for you that I'm going to share with you as I see the numbers climb. We've got two great guests on tonight. Sean Buckley is back. We're going to play the second half of my interview with him. He is an attorney that was very, very involved in the National Citizens Inquiry in Canada. He's got great information to share with people not only in Canada, but in the United States and around the world. I'll also have Victor Avella on tonight. Victor, by the way, was down at the border in the thick of a major, what I would say, war between the United States, the cartels, and on and on and on. So he'll be on a little later. And by all means, if you have any questions, if I can get to them, I certainly will before we begin our broadcast at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So what's going on? Well, many of you, in fact, most of you know, I am sure, that I responded to Prime Minister Trudeau's attack on American moms and dads, his attack on aunts and uncles, his attack on the Republican Party of the United States of America. Now, people are going to say that wasn't an attack. Well, he actually went out of his way to say that the reason why the Muslims and others in Canada are protesting this Marxist, Leninist, Stalinist curriculum and everything else that's going on in Canada, the reason why that's happening is because of the United States, because of what he calls right-wing people here in the United States. Well, the fact of the matter is, I did answer Mr. Trudeau. My answer was posted. It went viral, where we got across our social media platforms over 69,000 hits. I mean, that is extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary, and it's still climbing. Now, 24 hours after that response of mine went viral, guess what happens? Well, not dozens, but hundreds of people sending messages in and tweets in, trying to demoralize Campaign for America, demonize Campaign for America, demoralize and demonize me. I mean, folks, I got to tell you, it was hilarious. It really was. Now, I say that not only to the people who watch this broadcast regularly and who are fighting for freedom and liberty, but I say that to those of you who are watching who are opposed to what we're doing here, who are opposed to freedom and liberty. And I know many of you are watching because based on some of your messages, your direct mails and messages and tweets, well, you've had to be watching this broadcast to put some of the stuff in there that you have accused us of. And I've got to tell you, if I've learned anything, and I've learned a lot from what we are doing, we have the enemies of freedom and liberty on the run. They fear us, folks. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about you. The people in the United States of America, the people in Canada, and every living soul in the free world who's fighting for freedom and liberty, the enemies of freedom and liberty fear you. Just keep that in mind. Because if they didn't fear us, they would have never gone on the attack the way they did. Now, also, we think we learned something, is that a lot of these attacks on us were from bots, okay? A lot of them. Maybe hundreds of them. But I gotta tell you, we began to realize there was a pattern. And some of these bots were using the same language. I mean, this is how dumb these people are, okay? They get hired by, whether it be a political organization, an activist organization, they just get hired to set up all these bots and then go on the attack. Go after Campaign for America. Go after Lieutenant Rogers. Go after those American dogs, as someone said. Well, you could call us anything you want. That's fine. We're used to that. But I must tell you this, folks, is that the fact of the matter is that the people, whether you're in Canada or the United States, because we're joined together when it comes to this fight for freedom, because we're both concerned about our national security, I've got to tell you, we're winning this. Before weeks ago, I said we're winning. I meant it. But now I got to tell you, I'm convinced we're winning by a long shot. But we got to stay the course. Now, so those of you who are watching from the U.S. Congress, Canadian Parliament, if you're not elected officials, I know your operatives are watching. I'm going to share a few things with you. But I have a question first. What are you so afraid of? What are you so afraid of? If what you're telling the public that what we're saying is not true, that communism has not taken its root in Canada, that communism is not taking its root in the United States, because it is. It is. And we have the proof. We have the proof. The Canadian people have the proof. The American people have the proof. For goodness sakes, worldwide, everyone knows what's going on in America and what's going on in Canada with regard to the Communist Party. They've got the claws in both our countries. You see, the difference between me and America and those of you who are supporting your government, I do not support my government run by Joe Biden. Those guys are a bunch of communists, for goodness sakes, in my view. In my view. And we've got the proof. And the proof, by the way, is now coming out every day in all of these hearings, all of these committees that have been set up by the Congress. And believe me, there's going to be hell to pay real soon by a lot of people. But the difference, like I said, between what's going on here and there is we have courageous people in the Republican Party, and now Democrats are standing up and say enough's enough. But you don't have elected officials in Canada who have the sheer guts to stand up against Trudeau and his party and his government. So the fact of the matter is that the people in Canada who are standing up against the evil are those who love freedom and liberty, and they're fighting and they're winning. So those of you who support the ideology of the Communist Party, whether you're in America or in Canada or any country around the world, you're going to be sent to the ash bin of history. Believe me. Oh, how could you say that? I could say that because it's happened before. It happened with the Soviet Union. It's going to happen with Communist China. And it's going to happen with every single person in this country, the United States of America, Canada, or anywhere else that supports communism. Now, one may ask, how is it? Because I've been asked this question. How is it that people could embrace communism? How is it that I get all these emails from Americans as well? It's not just Canadians, it's Americans, it's Canadians, some people from other countries. Well, Lieutenant Rogers, you know what? You're not truthful about the communism. We love our country. Of course, everybody loves their country. But the question is, how can you embrace an ideology that's going to enslave you? And there's two answers to that. Number one, in fact, probably the overwhelming number of people in this world who embrace communism, who love and want to be part of a communist regime, have never, ever suffered under communism or lived during a period of time when a communist took control of countries. So what I say to you who support a communist ideology, talk to someone from the Soviet Union who lived in the Soviet Union, as we have. Talk to someone who was tortured in Cuba under a communist regime. Well, let's talk about East Germany, Czechoslovakia. Let's talk about those heroic people in Poland during the days of the Solidarity movement. Solidarity movement. You know what that is? Of course you don't. Only the freedom people know, the freedom fighters know. But those of you who embrace communism, you have no idea what solidarity it is. You have no idea what you're in for. And believe me, you want to be a slave to communism? Move to a communist country. That's for Americans and Canadians, anybody else. You want to live under communism and be told what to do, how to do it, then do that. This all began to erupt, folks, when we began to challenge that ridiculous C-11 and C-18 bill, that censorship bill. Well, the mail I'm getting, this isn't a censorship bill. This is the Canadian government that wants to rightfully charge those who don't have a lack of Canadian content. Well, what's Canadian content? Who determines that? Joe Biden tried to do that here with his Ministry of Truth. And by the way, we put the headline up when the judge in Louisiana shot that thing down, and judge said it was an Orwellian attempt, the most egregious attack on the freedom of speech in the United States of America. So how could it be an egregious attack on the freedom of speech in the United States of America and not in any other country? Because we have a constitution that protects our free speech. We have tyrants in office that are being dealt with because the American people had said enough is enough. So Trudeau goes out there and he insults Muslims, not only in Canada, but around the world. He insults them by trying to lead us to believe, well, they're not intelligent enough. He insults Catholics and Protestants. We're not intelligent enough. I'm going to tell you something, Mr. Trudeau, if you're watching, which I'm sure you're not, but I'm sure somebody who supports you is. First of all, before you open your mouth regarding right-wing people in this country, with regard to the whether it be the gay lesbian movement, whether it be regard to critical race theory and all this other stuff going on, you better do some homework. Your attack was on the moms and the dads and the people who are trying to protect their children. Right-wing. When you use that term, guess what? The FBI, the DOJ, law enforcement agencies from the White House use that term when they went after parents who went to school board meetings. Go after them right-wingers. Grandma, you're going after. Grandpa, you're going after. People in the United States of America who finally woke up and stood up. And they're Muslims, and they're Catholics. They're Jewish people. They're from all faiths and walks of life who said enough is enough. We're going to stand up for our children. That's what it took to wake up America. And now that's what it took to wake up Canadians all across the country, because we're hearing from them. We're hearing from them. And if you want to go out and attack Campaign for America, you want to try to demoralize us, well, guess what? It ain't working. We're digging in. We're digging in. So then we hear this. Well, you're interfering with our election. You're interfering with our government. Well, you could go think about that. Because when we issued that statement, it's public, it's in writing. We've got it on one of our websites. We made it very clear. And I said this from the beginning. There's no way we can get involved, or do we want to get involved with the workings of your parliament. It's your business. It's the people's business, the people of Canada. They'll deal with it, they'll address it, and they'll win. But I will get involved in the government of the United States of America, where I live. We will engage our politicians. We will educate them. We will teach them. We will let them know that we have a clear and present danger north of our border. And that clear and present danger is not the people of Canada, it's the government of Canada. And we want the people in this country who are in the United States Congress and every state to perhaps do what the Ohio State Legislature did a couple of years ago and or at least recommend that Canada be put on a religious watch list. I'm looking out for my country. Well, you all ought to look out for your country and join those wonderful, courageous truckers, those wonderful, courageous people like the moms and dads and the aunts and uncles in Canada. You ought to join them and stand up for what's right and stand up for the people who are interested in the future of their children under a free government where freedom reigns. And so, how does this reflect on that other question, or at least the other part of the question, is how did people embrace it? Here you go, folks. Now, this cannot be disputed. Of course, those who don't believe in God or don't believe in biblical scripture or prophecy, they'll argue this point. But this came to me, folks. This came to me just a few days ago. So, because I've asked the question, how is it that people embrace this stuff? Except those days should be shortened. There should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. If the days were not shortened, says the word of God in Matthew 24:22, if the days were not shortened, even the elect would be deceived. Think about that. Even God's elect. People are being deceived all over this earth, folks. Believe me, we're living in a time when we need to be wise, be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walketh about like a roaring lion. And boy, is he walking about like a lion. So those of you who can care less about this fact in Matthew, it's right here, okay? This fact, well, you're going to pay the consequences. And you go ahead. You made your bed, you sleep in it. But those of us who believe in the power of God and the power of prayer, believe me, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. So there you go. There you go. We're going to continue to do the work we're doing. We're not going to let any individual stop us. We're working within the framework of the law, and we are winning. And by the way, one more thing before we start the broadcast. I know I've gone over, and we'll extend the broadcast a little tonight. Why won't the Canadian Broadcasting Company or the CBC, whatever your networks are up there, why don't they want us to come on the air? Why don't they want us to sit with them? Why don't, listen, we can do it like we're doing here. I'll sit here in America. Those broadcasters could sit there in Canada, and let's have a discussion. They won't do it, folks. They can't do it because the government funds that, those networks, those broadcasts. And they got a collar around their neck with a chain. They're not journalists. Same thing what we got here in the United States, a public broadcasting system, which hopefully will be defunded soon. CNN, MSNBC, you know what? They'll not have me on anymore. Why? Tell the truth. You're not going to go on. But Newsmax, One America News, and I know Fox has taken a lot of hits, but hopefully down the road they'll do more and more and more reporting on issues not only here in America but around the world. Fact of the matter is that the Canadian government wants complete control of the lives of their people, in our view. And in America, they tried it. Didn't work. Didn't work, and it's not working. So we'll keep you up to date on what's happening here in the States. But the one thing I want you to remember, folks, especially those of you who live in Canada, I want you to remember you're winning. You're winning. And they will not discourage us. They have attempted to, I guess, block us and kind of get us off the air. Well, that ain't going to work. So let's just stay the course, keep the faith, and let freedom ring. All right, Sean Buckley, all right, an attorney who's worked very, very closely with the National Citizens Inquiry in Canada. Now, this is the second half of the last week's conversation I had with him, okay? So we're going to get right into the second half, and then after him, take a real 10-second break, and we're going to get Victor on. Here you go, folks.
At Toronto and start watching the openings. And when you realize I wouldn't have gone through those even once, it was totally the Holy Spirit speaking, and also the closing at the end day, you'll see what happened. And some days, like just witness after witness started talking about God. It became clear to everyone, whether they were Christians or not Christians, that God was moving. And I had been praying that God would use this as a light on the hill to basically shine light and allow people that wouldn't think outside of the government narrative to see some truth. And that's what it appears God is doing. Like, there are people that, like, we have a close family member who just, would think that we're absolutely, certifiably mentally ill on, our worldview, right to the point that it damaged the relationships. Like, I don't know about the United States, but in Canada, families are divided. Long-term friendships have ended, and we're still unable to speak to each other. And we were hoping the National Citizens Inquiry would start that dialogue and start that healing. Well, this one family member ended up watching 4 full sets of hearings and now fully understands. And, we're still not talked about openly, but it's changed. And it's because it's a safe forum. The witnesses are called, they're sworn to tell the truth. And then the lawyer leads them in questions. And then the commissioners have questions of the witness. And it's a very safe and formal process that people that just will not, you can't speak to at all, that just would not listen to, a Dr. McCullough or an Ed Dowd. They wouldn't watch a video you sent them, but they'll watch them testify at the National Citizens Inquiry because it's a safe, formal process.
Sean, I'm going to post something here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. Is that your National Citizens?
Yeah, that's our website. So it's just nationalcitizensinquiry.ca, and .ca is just a Canadian, like instead of .com, it's .ca. So if you're in Canada and you're, like a nonprofit or a National Citizens Inquiry something, you'd do the CA to show that, no, you're a Canadian group, right? So yeah, so nationalcitizensinquiry.ca, that's our website. And on there we have all 24 days of hearings posted. Now, we're still having our video guy is going to break every single witness into a separate video and all of that stuff. But right now you just we got the whole day, just the good, bad, and the ugly, and the power outages and the fire alarms and all the disturbances that seem to be deliberate. And you just experience that with us live.
A couple of questions. Do you have the videos of the testimony also stored away in case somebody decides to take your website down? And the next question is, has it been transcribed? Because what I'm thinking about as you're speaking, we're going to, we're working very hard to get to our congressional representatives. But this interview that you're having with me is like, and I say this because I mean it, is really encapsulating what was done up there. So we're going to get copies of this interview to our representatives also. But in the event they ask, and they may say, well, we want to see some of the testimony. Is there going to be a place we can go, whether it's memorialized in a book type form or a video?
So right now, anyone can go to the website and watch the testimony. And clearly we have some backups in secure places, but we've actually had this discussion, and then I'll get to the transcripts because that's actually part of the magic of the NCI. So we're trying to figure out how do we protect this, because the Canadian government passed a law, Bill C-17, in the last 2 months, which basically will give them the ability to totally censor online content. So truly, it's just a matter of time where that will be taken down. And actually what we're thinking of doing, once all the video is clipped in the high resolution, is selling people just at cost jump drives with the whole thing. So, if you've got 10,000 people out there with jump drives with it, because it has to be preserved somehow, because it's just a matter of time before it'll be taken down. Now, you asked if there's transcripts. Now, here's the thing is, understand, we're just a small group of volunteers, and we had no intention of transcribing 24 days. And when I say days, I mean, sometimes average time we'd sit to about 7:30 at night, sometimes 9:30, 10. We would get through all our witnesses. If people, we gave people the voice that they asked for, and the commissioners were very flexible. I'm thankful to them. But we wouldn't have money to get all of that transcribed. We had no intention of getting it transcribed. And then my wife that has been volunteering full time, largely on the social media side, one of the volunteers had really good writing skills, and my wife wanted to bring her in to kind of do a chronicle of what has happened with the NCI. And this person thought to herself, well, I actually need witness transcripts. So she organized 70 volunteers to do the transcripts. So they basically run the testimony through an AI program to get a rough transcript. And then one person will read it and make changes. And then a different person will read the same transcript and make changes. And then a third will do the same. So this group of volunteers, just all on their own, have self-organized to do transcripts. And you know what? I'm confident they'll be pretty good. They won't be perfect. They're not court transcribers, but they'll be pretty good. And that's actually the magic of what the National Citizens Inquiry is about. It's citizens just doing it. They just jump in and do it. So so if any of your viewers want to just go on and download our hearings and stuff them in a hard drive in their shed, I mean, please do, because
let's talk about that for a minute. So now you go to the website, and I suppose there's a link to the testimony, correct? To all these people.
Yeah. So there'll be a page, and right now, there'll be an index for each day of who testified and when. So if somebody jumps out at you, you can just go there. Like the intention is we'll have for each witness a separate video, and each witness will have a separate page. So it'll link to their testimony, it'll link to the transcript. If any exhibits were entered for them, it will link to that. And if any further interviews were done with them, it will link to that. And this is just a volunteer team doing that. It's not like we had the funds to hire a big website team, but people, and we're talking high caliber people, just volunteer to do this stuff. So there's a whole team working on doing that and then making it searchable, because we have the most significant database of COVID testimony in the world by a long shot.
Now, I'm not a tech guy, so I'm going to, I'm thinking out loud. So, all right, so the Canadian government decides to take your website down, let's say, okay? And people would have a difficult time other than do the jump drive to get to the testimony. But what if those links on that website, what if we were able to get them on our website, or we were able to help you build a website on this side of the border through the companies we're dealing with here? And what we have is very secure, and our government, it's against the law for them to do anything like that here. So that's never going to happen. Is that a possibility to preserve what you have and put it, just duplicate what you got there, but do it on this side? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And Stephen, I don't know, that's not kind of my area, but I share your concern that, I'm not kidding. If your viewers, just start at Toronto, and you just pick any day after Toronto, and you watch the full day, and you tell me you're not changed. And but I warn you, because actually what people are finding is once they start watching, they can't stop. Yeah. And it's very disruptive in their lives, because it's kind of like when you get hooked by some TV series, because you will laugh and you will cry and you'll go, what? There's some testimony, one that just comes to mind. There was a lady that testified in Saskatoon, and her name escapes me right now, although I should know it. Well, her mother had been visiting with her and leaves her house to go and get her second shot of the vaccine at the drugstore. And the neighbor actually even had security footage. So we have as an exhibit, her mother, leaving the house and going, walking to her car. So, she's healthy and vibrant and no problem with the mother. So there's actually a lineup of people waiting to get vaccinated. And then, once they're vaccinated, just standing around for their 15-minute waiting period. So she gets vaccinated. She's texting her daughter, and we've got the text as an exhibit. I'm just waiting in that. And then she drops dead. They figure that she was dead before she hit the floor. And now here's the scary part, Stephen, is the lineup of people waiting to get vaccinated just continued to get vaccinated while this lady lay dead on the floor. You can't make this stuff up. It's the amount of conditioning was just astronomical. That psychiatrists and researchers are just going to have a field day with this, for hundreds of years.
Yeah, they are. And but the good news is that you're out there, and there are people like you out there fighting the good fight of faith. I want to get back to this jump drive business. I'm fixated on it because what you have there has to be preserved, and it has to be sent out worldwide, let alone in this country. And I want to get it to our lawmakers. So you said that you may have a situation where you could sell the jump drives, and then people will have all that information on the jump drive. Please let us know when those are for sale.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So I'll actually ask the person that would be tasked with that.
Okay, we'll put the word out worldwide for you. I mean, we'll put it out for you because that's the only factual, credible information right from the people that any of us can rely on. I don't trust the government with anything.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're like any techies out there. When you go to our website and you link to a day of testimony, it just goes to our Rumble account. Probably people that are tech savvy can download it or record it or whatever. And that would actually be a good thing, even though the quality won't be as good. It's still not bad, right? So, I mean, if some people want to be proactive now, we would all welcome that, because when the government strikes, it's usually quick and unexpected. So in the interim, I'm glad you're bringing it up, because it is a concern that we have also. We know it's funny because it's our goal was just to come out with positive recommendations and start a national dialogue, but we know we haven't been appreciated at all. And it's funny because we're not government, we didn't have the power to subpoena anyone to compel them to come and testify. So we had to, we have a non-binding summons that we would send out to every health minister and every public health officer and other high ups that were involved in COVID things in every province that we were going through. And not a single one would dare come and testify.
Well, they're cowards, to be frank with you. These government people. I'm curious about this. Of course, you won't have the answer, but we may find the answer to this question. And with all this testimony you've received and all this being memorialized, the question I have that I'm going to ask some of the congressional reps we hope to meet with soon: has there been any collaboration from anybody in the United States with your government? Has a Dr. Fauci, has anybody in this government had any discussions with anybody in your government as this COVID lockdown was going down and all these restrictions were going down? Because I find it not coincidental, by the way, how the Biden administration now, and then even during the lockdowns in this country under the Trump administration, a lot that you were doing there was being replicated here. And so I'm very curious about that. And I say that because our Congress would have the power to subpoena our citizens who were allegedly, if that's the case, collaborating with Canadian government officials. And, once they're put under oath, at least I know here, if they lie to the Congress, they're going to go to prison. So it's just very curious about how this thing can unfold. But that's just an outside thought I have regarding this. In other words, and Sean, you'll probably get a kick out of this. We know that some of the government officials in your country, if not them personally, your parliament members, their operatives or staff watch our broadcast. We know that. All right. And I can tell you, based on what we're receiving and some little information we're getting, they're nervous. Those parliament members backing Trudeau are nervous because they know what is happening to Joe Biden. They know we caught up to him. We know the Democrats in this country are going to collapse as a party. Some people are going to go to jail. And over and over and over again, we've shared with the parliament members in your country via the social media that once Trudeau gets caught with all the problems surrounding him and allegations, sooner or later, he's going to get caught. And my guess is he's going to be out of office. I don't know how you guys do it, impeach him or whatever, but he may end up in prison himself. No one wants to stay on a sinking ship. His ship is sinking. And this national citizens inquiry may be the information that's needed to shake your parliament up enough to get them to realize that what they did was, again, my view, not only unethical, immoral, but criminal. And so with all that going on and some of them watching, I say that directly to them. I've told you over and over and over again, watch what's happening in America, because you guys and you ladies, whoever you are in parliament, you're going to get caught if you're corrupt. You're going to get caught if you did something very, very bad to your citizens based on politics and not on facts. And another end of this is, and we're very proud to say things on this broadcast that a lot of secular programs won't, Sean, and I'm going to ask you to weigh in on this part, is there is a God above. And when you start messing around with the gift of freedom and liberty that he gave us, when you stop messing around with his creation, well, you're messing around with the wrong guy. All throughout biblical history, tyrants, you know what? They walked their road for a little while. They had their 15 minutes of fame. In fact, maybe God knew about 15-minute cities and he put all the tyrants in those cities and they lasted 15 minutes. And then after that, judgment came down. Well, my point, Sean, is this, that there's a God above and he's watching it all. And I say this to encourage the citizens of Canada and the United States and freedom-loving people around the world, is that he has anointed, if you will, empowered through the Holy Spirit, people like you and people like all those fine commissioners, very brave citizens in your country and the many brave citizens in our country and those around the world who love freedom and liberty. I believe this is our time. This is a calling to all of you and those of us who are fighting for freedom and liberty to preserve those gifts that he has given us. What do you think of that as really the true spiritual?
No. I'd like to speak to a couple of things that you've said there. So, I was not serious about God before COVID. And then what I started seeing happening, not just in Canada, but around the world, made it very clear to me that Satan is real. I mean, just even go and watch the Commonwealth Games. Americans won't even know what they are, but Commonwealth countries. So, basically tied to the British Empire. So England, Canada, UK, New Zealand, some African countries. They hold kind of like an Olympics every year. They're called the Commonwealth Games, and they're a big thing in these countries. Go watch our opening ceremonies last year, where basically people dressed up as slaves are pulling chains, dragging out the golden bull of Baal. I mean, almost every. I mean, your National Football Super Bowl. Like, help me out. Satanism is everywhere in public display, and it made me realize, if Satan's real, then Jesus is real, and I had to get serious again about this. But I don't know about you. I was expecting to, have my career, raise kids, save up for retirement, buy a cottage at the lake, and take it easy and just live that life. And are we ever fortunate that God's not allowing that to happen? That actually we're in a world now, Stephen, where you can't just sit and watch TV, and you can't not be involved. I don't know about the United States, but in Canada, we've already long passed the point where we can get our institutions working for us again without paying a cost. So, so we're going to pay a cost on this side of the border to get our institutions back, I think. And but you can't sit still. Can I just share you a story of one of the testimonies at the National Citizens Inquiry? But my point is you're appointed for this time. You're here for this time, and you have to choose which side you're on. And choosing to do nothing is a choice. So you have to get involved, and you have to peacefully get your institutions back. You have to be involved in your school boards and make sure that the madness, of their curriculum and other things are not happening there. Like in our schools, they're having transvestites do story time and just obscene materials put in our schools. Well, you have a personal responsibility, whether you have kids in school or not, to be active in your school board and in your municipality and in politics. You can't sit still anymore. Freedom isn't free anymore. So one of the witnesses that I called at our Red Deer hearings, a lady by the name of Regina, she was involved in the Solidarity movement in Poland from its inception. So for your viewers that are younger, Poland was a communist police state, and it was oppressive. And this trade union group called Solidarity slowly started a rebellion that overthrew the police state, and they became a free nation again. So I mean, they have changes of government, they have elections. They're not a communist country anymore. And she was saying, we weren't getting any support. And then, they got big enough that the state intervened and, arrested the leadership. And so the remainder people in Solidarity were taking care of the families and trying to keep, families of the people that were arrested and trying to keep the thing going. And then she got arrested and sentenced to 3.5 years for handing out material like brochures and that went against the government narrative. And it's funny because she's been doing that in Canada in the freedom movement, and she's afraid about being arrested in Canada because she has that experience. So, but she said to me when I was preparing, interviewing her before calling her as a witness, I don't think it came out on the stand, but she said the people only came out to the streets, like people only took to the streets and they had their peaceful revolution when the bread ran out. So the economy was collapsing. People were actually hungry. It was only when people were hungry that the bread ran out. And her point to me is like, until it's desperate, people won't stand up. But the thing that's scary, Stephen, is they were a police state and suffered for decades and decades and decades and decades. And at any time, they could have stood up. They didn't have to wait till the bread ran out. All they had to do was stand up and say, we're not cooperating anymore. We're taking our government back. We're taking our institutions back. And so, what frustrates me in Canada is we could just stand up and peacefully stop participating and take our institutions back and take our government back and reform them to be working for the people again. And that could happen in the United States. It could happen in England. You just name the countries. We can do it at any time. We all know it's off the rails. We all know it's broken, that it's no longer serving the people. Its government and institutions have become adversarial. This happens. There's a pattern through history. And we're at that point where we have to stand up. But why we're waiting is what perplexes me, Stephen.
Well, why we're waiting, I guess it goes back to having that faith and trust in God, that everything is under His control and timing is everything. It's a great question, but a man once said to me, there are some questions we'll be asking God, and He won't answer them at this time. But while we are waiting, we are fighting. While we are waiting, we are exercising our faith. And here I'm using America as an example. What's happened in this country over the past several months with regard to taking our country back is extraordinary. Because you know what? You bring up a perfect illustration about they didn't have any more bread to eat. Well, in America, we didn't have any more room to swallow the garbage that the government was giving us. And finally, the moms and the dads and the grassroots people stood up. And we're seeing a transformation now as you and I speak in this country with regard to our elections across the country and the inquiries and the indictments coming down. And Canada won't be saved by America. I know people were right. I mean, I've got thousands of letters. America, come and save us. America, help us. We're helping. But you know who's going to save Canada? The people of Canada.
Yeah, no, you're right.
They're going to save Canada. And we're there to support, to pray, and to make sure that our government is very well aware of what's going on there. And I mean that, folks. We sense it. When I see we, that's not me. There's millions of us that are becoming very, very concerned about what's going on in your country. But because of people like Sean, his wife, and others in that commission, and we're able to get the word out. Sean, one question I have before we wind down. You know about the Hague inquiry in your country? Do you know about that? That there was an inquiry of, a load of information put together that actually is going to the Hague to bring charges against your government. If you need information about that, if you're not aware of it, a lot of people aren't yet.
No, I was going, oh, wow.
Yeah. What you
or if
have,
I've heard about it, it's been referred to differently, but it's...
Oh, well, what you have, I will connect you with the people that have been very instrumental in bringing that information together. From what I am told, The Hague has agreed. They have agreed to take in all the evidence and look at it and review it. So I'll make sure you get hooked up with the individuals who are running that part of the program. You see, it's all connected together. It's important. But, well, any last words to our worldwide audience? And I'll tell you what, this has been extraordinary. And we're going to have you on again in the future. And this video, obviously we're recording this, and it'll certainly be played on 2 of our broadcasts coming up in the next few weeks. We're going to do 30 minutes one and 30 minutes another, because we don't want you to go away. We can't get enough of what you've said, and then we'll have you on again. But any last words to the people watching?
Well, I just the one thing is that you're not alone. I don't know what the experience was like in the States, but we were cowering in our homes until the trucker convoy started, and then we watched the trucker convoy be dismantled by the police state in a brutal way. And we've all felt very disillusioned. What we've learned with the National Citizens Inquiry and just this community that's formed, and you don't have to be Canadian, you watch it and you'll become part of the community. The whole world's watching because God is using it as a light on the hill to just show truth. And but we're not alone, and we are the majority. And so I think that you have to understand you have a lot of power and you have a lot of agency. And this is actually about you taking responsibility for your own actions. So you need to pray and you need to decide what God wants you to be doing, but He doesn't want you to be sitting still. unless you get a specific direction that you are to wait, because that happens. But if you're not getting a specific direction to wait, you get involved. You ask, you figure out where your role is. But this is a time where you have to take personal responsibility, and by not doing something, it has significant consequences, and you're responsible for that. So remember, you're very important in this. And in fact, you're the most important. This only happens because you will take responsibility. It's not up to Stephen. It's not up to me. It's not up to other people. This only happens when you take to the streets, so to speak, because this is actually about us deciding to take responsibility again. God doesn't heal our land until we turn back to him, and that's an action.
Well said. Couldn't have said it any better. Sean, thanks so much. And as I shared with you, we'll have you on again in the future. And I want to let you know it's an honor to call you my friend. That one thing about this journey, we've made a lot of friends across America and Canada. And I just want to thank you, your wife, who's been working with you, and others. God bless you, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Stephen. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, folks, another extraordinary individual who's working very hard for the cause of freedom and liberty. Now, before I bring Victor on, now, folks, you're going to want to hear what Victor has to say. He was down at the border, and as he was down there, I believe he was involved in an exchange of gunfire down there, and he's going to tell his story. He's going to let us know exactly what has happened since then and what he's doing as he continues to fight for freedom and liberty. So I'm going to get him on in a minute. And before I do, okay, I have a couple of things I'd like to share with you. Folks, to begin with, the people who are opposed to our fight for freedom and liberty, they're pouring not thousands, but millions of dollars into all sorts of ways and means to stop us. Not only not only Campaign for America, but anyone who's doing what we're doing, fighting for freedom and liberty. So once again, and I'm going to continue to do this, and if you could help out, we would really be grateful if you can provide a contribution. And I don't like doing this, but I'm at a point where I have to. We're growing so big. I don't want us to grow so big that we no longer have the means to do what we're doing. And I pray to God every day that he provides the means, but the only way he's going to provide those means is through you. So I would ask you to go to PayPal there. If you're uncomfortable with PayPal, what we're going to do, I'm going to put something up here. If you would like to, if you can donate via credit card, you can go to our website, and let me put it right here. Here we go. I think that's it right there. And like I said, I don't like doing this, but I see what's happening here. I see this thing growing in leaps and bounds far beyond our expectations. But I also see the contributions and donations going into those who are opposed to us. And they're not shy, folks. They want to kill us. Believe me. They want to kill the broadcast here. They want to kill any broadcasting that's going on in the fight for freedom and liberty. It's how communism works. They want to shut everybody down. So the only way they can do it is if they dry us up financially. And how can they do that? Well, you know what? They could put enough information, disinformation, enough stuff out there just to discourage people. Because when people are discouraged, they're not going to give. They're not going to donate. Believe me, it's not going to happen. But those of you who have contributed, and I'm talking about everybody who's contributed from $1 to whatever amount they were able to give, I thank you. I wish I could, shake your hand personally. I've written some letters. Folks, I've got so many letters. I'm not talking hundreds now. A few thousand a month are coming in. I can only come on the air, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you. But we do need your help to stay on the air. Every single dime is going to what you're seeing. Nobody gets paid here. And if I'll tell you something else, folks, there's something we do that a lot of people don't do. When I go speak, or when any of us go speak at events, we don't charge anybody. There are absolutely no fee that we will attach to the fight for freedom and liberty. None at all. And I know others do that. That's their business. That's their issue. We're not in this for the money. We're in this to make sure that our children and grandchildren are going to live in a free America, a free Canada, a free Poland, a free whatever country you're from. We're going to do the best we could. But we cannot do it without coming together and help. So our prayer to God is, If he touches your heart, boy, I'll tell you, it would be a big help. So let me get to Victor. And when Victor is done, just a few more words with you at the end of the broadcast. But folks, stick around. You're going to want to hear this story. Stick around. Thank you. And I'll be back in about 33 minutes. Enjoy it. This is going to be very interesting. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, we have another great guest tonight who's on the front lines of helping this great country, the United States of America, with a number of issues, and in particularly one issue. Let me introduce to you right now, Victor Avila. Victor, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. Great to be with you.
Victor, would you be kind enough to share with our audience, who you are, your background? And by the way, just so you know, our broadcast is global. We've got thousands of people across the United States, Canada, and in other countries watching. So one of the reasons why I've asked you to come on, and by the way, thank you for joining us, is that you're a man of facts. You have facts, you have credible information, and you're doing a great work out there. So I think we're going to see a lot of good stuff. We're going to hear from you this evening. Thank you.
Absolutely want to share a lot of that, and a lot of it happening, especially regarding our border security and our southwest border. I'm a retired special agent with Homeland Security Investigations under ICE, and I worked at all different levels of the government, at the county level in Texas, a state level, federal level, and in an international level as a U.S. diplomat in Mexico and Europe, representing our government, dealing with the mission and to protect our homeland, something that I think has been lacking on the last couple of years under this administration, that we see what we see today based on policy, not based on the law, not based on our Constitution, but based on ideology and based on other factors that have nothing to do with who we are as a country. And it troubles me. It troubles me, not just in my professional career, but in my personal life, because I almost lost my life. As a matter of fact, my partner was killed in the line of duty next to me in Mexico, and I was shot 3 times. And so I know firsthand the evil and the imminent threat that we face by the cartels and other evildoers that want to come to this country and cause us harm. Plus, illegal immigration, cartels, drugs, human trafficking, human smuggling, things that are really affecting not just our border states, but every state in our country.
Victor, one of the things that I've done in my career is I worked at the FBI National Joint Terrorism Task Force as a military intel officer a few years ago. One concern we had was that terrorists would be crossing that border, that the Iraqi government at that time, in fact, Iran, the Chinese Communist Party, would take advantage of that border. Now, this is before Donald Trump was elected.
Right.
And we saw a lot of people coming across that border, but we had no idea who they were and where they were from. Do you have any indication that that did happen? And of course, I don't expect you to have any facts with relation to that, but was there a lot of concern on your part, the Border Patrol parts, that this was happening?
Absolutely. I could tell you firsthand, when I worked in Mexico, I interviewed a lot of these individuals. In the Department of Homeland Security, we refer to them as SIAs, special interest aliens, because they come from special interest countries that are sponsored or state-sponsored terrorism. And I'm talking to people from Bangladesh, from Somalia, from Iran, Syria, and those such countries, that Pakistan, that we know that more than likely these individuals could be sponsored by terrorists, and they were in Mexico, and this is years ago. And so we've always had that intel. I've done big investigations on Afghan smuggling through Mexico, from Afghanistan, that comes through Mexico, because a lot of these terrorists and others know that once they're in Mexico, they're as good as being in the US because of the corruption that exists in that country. And so, yes, that's always been a major concern. But not only is it true, because we've already intercepted and interdicted in the last 2.5 years, close to 200 individuals on the terror watch list and no-fly list. Just last month in April, we detected 16 on the southern border. So yes, they're coming in. Those are the ones that we know about. Those are the ones that we actually stopped. How many have we not stopped? And that's the big national security component to all of this, because for some reason this administration has forgotten that threat as well. We'll talk a lot about the cartels and the other threats, but the terrorism threat still exists in this country from the Middle East, and they have set up shop in Mexico. They've been there so long, and they've been patient that they set up mosques and communities, and they live there. They live in Tijuana and along the borders. They live in other parts of Mexico. And what better way right now than an open border system where it allows them to infiltrate themselves into the U.S.?
Victor, I've concluded that it's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when they're going to strike here in the United States, in our homeland. I know full well, and I know you know this, is that terrorist organizations are very methodical, very strategic, and very patient. So my concern is that with the Biden administration transporting these individuals, these illegal immigrants, and no doubt in my mind that terrorists are mixed within that group, that they're actually giving them passage to the targets that they may very well strike at across the United States of America. So in reference to that, how do we handle that? I mean, I know we have JTTFs all over the country. Do you still see the sharing of information? I mean, I've seen it back then when this was happening, but I'm not hearing much about the collaboration between ICE and the local police and state police, etc.
Unfortunately, those gaps of intelligence sharing still exist. Even when I was there, it's not fluid. It doesn't follow up and down. Usually it's just in one direction. FBI obviously has other issues. We got to a point where if we did the smuggling as HSI and ICE, we had the jurisdiction of the smuggling type of investigation, and we investigate the smuggling routes and the smuggler. And of course, once we detected any kind of terrorism, we had to then pass that over to FBI. Well, we weren't sure the FBI was doing anything about it, but we were doing investigations at least to stop the organizations from moving the people. As a matter of fact, right before I got shot, I was doing a big Afghan smuggling investigation in Mexico that was coming in through Arizona. And so it's been happening for a long time. And one of my pet peeves, and you'll hear me say it, is that we are allowing all these illegal individuals to board airplanes without any identification. And I've witnessed it. I've videotaped it. I've challenged TSA. The airlines are complicit. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, what? You and I can't do it. No one can do it other than if you're illegal, you can. And their justification for that is, well, they've been processed by Border Patrol, and Border Patrol gave them this piece of paper, 214 or whatever, the forms that I know. And who cares? That's not a valid identification. That paper just contains the information that the illegal provided themselves, which is not vetted. And it's not a state-issued license or passport or visa. And this is I have a big problem with that, because they continue, as you and I speak, to board commercial airliners. And well, I've even told them in person, have you forgotten 9/11? I mean, this is to me an incredible breach of security. But if you're illegal, somehow you get away by not having to follow our own laws and our Constitution. Immigration law doesn't apply to you. Getting on an airplane with an ID doesn't apply to you. Child endangerment laws don't apply to you, and many other things. But for some reason, but if you're a U.S. citizen, it certainly does. Because I walked through right behind some illegals from Africa once down in South Texas, and they wouldn't allow me to continue on because I just walked in just like they did. I scanned my boarding pass and I walked in, and they said, "What are you doing?" I said, well, I'm getting on the plane. He says, "No, you need to show your ID." I said, well, as soon as they show theirs, I'll show mine. What did they show you? What passport? Because I had already talked to them. I had already interviewed them the way I used to interview people. And they had 48 hours before when they were in Uganda, Africa, and now they were in Texas 48 hours after. And I'm like, this is upside down and backwards. I even told the TSA, you're the Department of Homeland Security representative here. You're one of the lines to detect this, and you're allowing them in. If anyone could board an airplane without an ID, it's me. I'm an American and a retired federal law enforcement agent. But They would not let me board an airplane without showing my identification. And this is a big, big problem.
Victor, has anyone from our Homeland Security Office or Congress, Congress is what I call the Congress of committees. They love committees. They love to do a lot of committee hearings and put a big show on before the American people. But has anyone been in touch with you or any of your colleagues to testify before them? This is fact. I mean, this is actually something that happened to you. So
Yeah.
This isn't you passing information on.
No, this is firsthand. This is firsthand information. And guess what? It hasn't just been one time. It's been numerous times. And then on top of that, it's me flying with illegal aliens. And one of my biggest concerns, and because I'm a subject matter expert in human trafficking investigations, and I rescued a lot of women and children from these horrific conditions, I've flown with numerous children, 3 years old, 4 years old, who is accompanied by a person that is not their father. And I'm sitting next to them. I've spoken to them. I've interviewed them, and based on my experience, they are not the father. They're not next of kin. They have no idea who this child is. All they are is a transporter, an aider and abetter of this trafficking. And I'm thinking, if you had any concern for two things, what had to do with the border, because I really believe it should be a nonpartisan issue, even though it obviously has been politicized and it is what it is. But if you think about the children and fentanyl, those two issues right now, right there alone, I think we would come together and say, listen, we have to do something to protect the American people. The numbers just came out for 2022, and we had almost 110,000 deaths due to fentanyl poisoning. That's outrageous. ISIS hasn't killed 110,000 Americans, but China has, through the help of the cartels. In China, with their precursors and chemicals that they continue to smuggle into Mexico. And Mexico, I have a big pet peeve with Mexico because they have done nothing. No one has challenged them other than President Trump to do something on their side of the border. They have a responsibility as well. Remember, all these people that are coming from all over the world are also illegally present in Mexico, and they have extremely strict immigration laws that they only get to exercise or enforce when they want to, but because of the corruption and the money that's flowing there is keeping them from doing that. But there is no pressure from the United States to say, listen, that's not an ocean. You claim your sovereignty all the time. Well, then do something about it, or the U.S. should be starting to place sanctions on them, declare the cartels foreign terrorist organizations, real solutions that would force their hand to do something on the other side, because that's one of the first ways that we have to do it. There is no other way. Mexico's not going away. And by the way, they're not 6,000 miles away. They're attached to us at the hip here, whether you like it or not. And we have to deal with them strictly at this point.
Yeah, let's talk about Mexico for a minute. I'm glad you mentioned that. I have not seen or heard all this time through this crisis, the Mexican government do anything substantial to curb this problem. I haven't heard about the Mexican military being deployed on their side of the border. All I've heard from people regarding the Mexican government is send us money. And also something maybe you could put to rest, because you just talked about it. There have been allegations, and I believe them to be false, fake, if you will, that ICE has been separating children from their parents. Kids are in cages. I mean, you've heard the same old story. Now, I looked into some of this, and what I found, and it'll be up to you to say to me, well, it's true or not, that what ICE was doing was making every effort to separate children from child smugglers, that they could not identify these as the real parents, as you just articulated. So for the sake of the people listening, would you give them the absolute facts with regard to really what's going on, and also this ludicrous, ridiculous idea that kids are being put in cages as if they were being put in a dog kennel?
And I'm going to break it down for you, because and I'm glad you brought that up. So when President Trump was president, remember he got slammed for the kids in cages, and we were talking about 5,000 children. And President Trump, his policy was a zero tolerance policy, meaning that if you get arrested, just like if you would get arrested anywhere in the United States, if you have a child with you, the child doesn't go with you to jail. If you get arrested for DUI, for theft, for burglary, for whatever, we're not going to bring your child with you to your cell and book the child with you. The state's going to take over, either CPS or the government or a family member to take care of that child. I did that all the time. When I arrested somebody and they had a child, I immediately had to make arrangements for that child either to be placed with a family member or on the custody of the state. Well, that's what President Trump did, which was legal. That was 5,000 children. What's happening now is 380,000. And you heard that number right. 380,000 children have come through that southern border, unaccompanied children. 86,000 of them have been completely lost like a piece of paper, like a chair. They have no idea where 86,000 children are at. And you're going to tell me about kids in cages? Listen, this is trafficking 101. This is aiding and abetting the smuggling and exploitation of these kids. And I want people to understand, when you hear the term unaccompanied minor, a lot of people think, well, it's a 5, 6, 7-year-old. It's also a 17-year-old killer, MS-13 gang member. And we've had a lot of those come in as unaccompanied minors who are gang members, cartel members. One that just killed an MS-13 gang member, 17-year-old, just killed a 20-year-old woman, autistic woman in Maryland, and choked her to death. This is real. These are real cases. And where did he come through? The southern border. And so there's a big mess because the Biden administration there's incompetence and there's ideology and there's evilness all combined together, which leads to death and it leads to chaos. Over close to 1,800 people have lost their lives on the U.S. side of the border in the last 2 years under this administration. And guess who's dying? Not only Americans are dying, but the migrants themselves. They're the ones drowning on the river. They're the ones dying of heat exhaustion in the desert. They're the ones hanging themselves and committing suicide by trees because they're delirious and lost, and they rather just take their lives. The rapes that the women and children have to endure from the treacherous journey. They give them female condoms. They give them the morning after pill, at least so they will not get pregnant, but they will get raped. So I'm thinking, you want to be a compassionate person, you want to be a humanitarian, secure the border, and you would prevent those crimes from happening in the first place, especially the ones to U.S. Citizens and become victims at the hands of illegal aliens. That's the picture there. But you don't see anybody crying on fences down in the border, or where's the left? Where's the outrage of the 380,000 kids? This is a trafficking nightmare. Those children already have been found to be placed in forced labor camps, one in Florida at a slaughterhouse or meat packing plant, and they're going to pop up even more. Forced labor and sexual exploitation. And guess who's controlling all that? Well, the cartels. The cartels are making billions of dollars because they have now learned that not only the drugs that they make money off, but they make money off of the human beings, first in smuggling them, and second in exploiting them and as slaves and indentured servitude situations. And they have them working for them all over the U.S., by the way.
Victor, I've been very outspoken about the sustained U.S. involvement in Ukraine. I'm very outspoken because I was around in the military during the Vietnam War, and I saw what that did to this country. But on the other side, with regard to Mexico, and again, I'm going to ask you to give the viewers your professional opinion on what I'm about to say, because what I'm about to say may not be a solution, but I'm ready to say launch military strikes from the United States, whether the president of Mexico likes it or not, on the cartel. Aerial strikes on their headquarters, their locations. What I'm saying is completely and totally obliterate them. We could do it. We got the firepower, and we can do it within 48 hours. My question to you is, if we do that, does it solve the border crisis problem? Can it create a bigger problem, in your view, with regard to people now fleeing Mexico? Because I would say we would need the help of the Mexican military at that point. However, I don't know if you would probably know better than me. I don't even know if the Mexican military really exists anymore without the cartel commanding the Mexican military.
So, and I'll break it to you this way. I'm a big supporter of designating the cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. What that does, that designation, by the way, comes by through the State Department, is the one that officially would do it. We probably at this point would need legislation to happen because it's not going to happen right now under this administration. But what it would do, and I wrote a chapter on this in my book, is that it would immediately seize all the assets and monies, bank accounts, properties, and everything that the cartels have all over the world. And because the cartels are functioning for two reasons, money and power. So they don't have the ideology that ISIS has and a religious and political ideology. I understand that. But death is death. They're killing us with pills, maybe not bullets. And so I think that we need to change that and designate them just like ISIS, just like the Taliban. But this is the other side, the pushback that I get. If we do that, then Mexican citizens would have the right to claim a credible fear and seek asylum in the U.S. I don't tend to agree with that because remember, you have to be persecuted by your government under our own asylum law, not by a criminal organization or by violence. A lot of the illegals that I interview, they're fleeing their countries because it's very violent. And you know what I answer them? Well, it's very violent here. Go to Chicago, go to Maryland, go to Baltimore, go to all these cities where we have a high rate of crime. So you're not escaping that. And so I do believe in the military intervention. I like that to be on the table. And yes, we could definitely obliterate them. And it would do many things. One, you would take the cartels out. Two, you send a message, not just to Mexico, but to the rest of the world, that the United States is not going to tolerate the disrespect and violation of our sovereignty. That's the biggest picture. You're sending the message, if you think about it, to Venezuela, to China, to Russia, to Cuba. These are these countries that are highly infiltrated in Mexico and want to gain access to us to gain their power and whatever their ideology and agenda is. That's what you do. By taking out the cartels, you actually are taking out a lot of other issues and showing strength through that. And so I think, Colombia in the 80s and 90s and what we had to do. Remember back then, Colombia did not agree initially with the United States going in, and eventually they realized, hey, we need the help. I think Mexico right now, the president that's there is adamantly opposed to the United States helping in that fashion. But you're right, they want the money. Well, I say let's cut them off. Let's cut them off now. Let's start doing sanctions. I'm not talking about just tariffs and 25%. I'm talking about sanctions, real sanctions, because of the multi-billion-dollar trade that we have in that border. A lot of stuff that we have in our house, in our everyday, came in a truck through that southern border. And there is power through that, through blocking some of that and putting some of those restrictions. Mexico would suffer. But listen, we're suffering already. We're suffering with the invasion of people coming from over 150 different countries, with the fentanyl deaths, with the cartel violence. And yes, it spilled over a long time ago. We're already suffering the consequences of having to put children in schools in Connecticut and Chicago. They don't even know what to do. And let me tell you, there's a list I have here of the health concerns that they have, and they're bringing in diseases: chickenpox, scabies, tuberculosis, lice, syphilis, chlamydia, flesh-eating bacteria. My goodness, you talk about Title 42 getting lifted because of COVID. Nobody even cares about COVID. We care about all these other diseases that are highly contagious, bringing them to your child's school, bringing them to your grocery store, to your gas station. You will be, and they will be next to you. And that's the real concern. That's because the people have not been properly vetted. I used to vet people and corporations and businesses as an agent. You can't do it in 5 minutes. And I'm the first one to tell you, I know not everybody coming is a bad person. I know that. I understand that. But that's why we have a legal process to do it. And I'm a big believer in legal immigration. If you come here and do it the right way, we have those laws to do it. If you don't qualify, you just don't qualify. We have to, in the United States, really stand up for ourselves, speak up for ourselves, and then we're able to help someone else. You brought up Ukraine. Listen, 100, I don't know what it is now. Maybe you know the number. What is it? $130 billion that we've sent to them already. I mean, come on. But we can't send $5 billion to build a wall. This is ridiculous. This is the not putting America first agenda policy that I completely disagree. I want to put Americans first. That's why I'm running for Congress down there at the border, to change this mentality that it's okay. I'm not embarrassed to be an American. I'm not embarrassed to put America first. And I'm not ashamed of being a conservative either. And I will say it, and people will, oh my God, you're a Hispanic and American. You know what? I was born and raised in Texas, and it doesn't mean I hate my heritage. I love my heritage, and my heritage is my heritage, and that's never going to change. But I'm an American, and my American heart belongs in this country, and that's why I continue to fight for it.
Victor, a couple of things you just mentioned that I was unaware of, and I'm glad you mentioned it. So let's talk about the first thing that you mentioned that I was unaware of. The first with a question. What you just shared with all of our viewers, is that in your book? That
Yes.
information in your book? All right. Do you have your book handy with you?
I'll get you a copy. I have one.
Yeah.
Let me grab this one.
Yeah.
Well, I'll grab you. I'll grab a. Here you go. I got one here.
Good. Well, I want you to show it to our viewers. All right. I don't normally do this, but this is important. Okay. Unfortunately, folks, it's backwards. I don't know why these cameras do that, but tell us what the title is.
It's
okay.
Agent Under Fire, a Murder in the Manifesto. Agent Under Fire, and this book is gonna you're gonna go through some emotions reading this book. This book is in detail a little bit about me and my career, but it's gonna detail the ambush that I went through in Mexico with my partner, and I were ambushed by the Zetas cartel, and he was killed, and I survived being shot 3 times. I'm here by the grace of God. So I go through that, and then at the end I said, listen, I know I went through a little bit through an identity crisis. Oh, that's the guy that got shot. Oh, that's the agent that survived. Well, you know what? I'm also a lot of things. I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm a son, but I'm also a border security expert. And I said, I'm going to write about that. I'm going to write about what I know. And at the end of this book, you will get an incredible briefing of what is going on. This book is 2 years old now. And if you read it today, you think I wrote it yesterday.
So it's Agent Under Fire. Can you get it on Amazon? And
Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com. You could go to my website, Agent Under Fire Book, AgentUnderFireBook.com, and you will get a good briefing about the wall, asylum, sanctuary cities, a lot of the policy that's going on right now. You're going to get a great understanding of where we're at, the foreign terrorist organizations designation of the cartels, and all that.
You see, folks, what Victor just did, he offered all of us the opportunity to purchase his book. And this isn't planned, folks. I didn't know he wrote a book. But just by speaking to this fellow, he put to rest a lot of rumor, a lot of innuendo, a lot of speculation, a lot of conspiracy theories. And this is what we need. People like him who are writing all of the information down, his experiences down, for us to get some facts. Because with facts, we could do a lot. Now, my second thing that I'm surprised about that I didn't know, you mentioned you're running for Congress?
I am. I just recently launched my campaign for Texas District 23, which, guess what? It's from El Paso, Texas to San Antonio, which is ground zero of what's happening at the southern border, Del Rio, Eagle Pass, El Paso, and all these counties in between. It's one of the biggest counties in Congress, 834 miles. And I'm running because in my career, first of all, my passion for the border and this country to secure it. Second of all, I always wondered in my career, the gap. Why is there this big gap and separation between Washington, D.C. and the real world, right? As a matter of fact, I just got back from D.C. on Monday, and I feel the warp of the swamp of this town that somehow doesn't understand what's happening in the real world. They think they do, and there's some good people that are there as well. But I always said in my career, why isn't there someone like me there making those policy decisions or briefing the people? Well, I want to be that person now. Put me there. I'm applying for this job to do the best for not only the constituents of District 23 and Texas, but the rest of the country. This has basically become a nationalized race because everybody knows that whatever we do down there is affecting them everywhere else in the country at this point. Every state is a border state now, and you will get a lot of experience. You will get a negotiator You will get a person that is unafraid. I lost a lot of my fear the day that I was almost killed. I'm not afraid of politicians. I'm not afraid of to talk to them and approach them and represent the people. I want to give the power back to the people. I'm there to listen. I'm there to be sent. Send me and tell me what you want to do. And I will take on the role of a servant, of a public servant that I've been all my life. And I will understand that I'm there working for the people, not the other way around.
You know, I find that fascinating. So here's what I want to do. All right. I didn't know that. As you know, Campaign for America, we're a nonprofit, and under IRS rules, you know, we can't get involved in endorsements, etc. But I can as an individual, and I've done that. So be that as it may, I want to talk to you offline. All right, I'm going to call you after this interview, and I want to see what I can do as an individual to help you. Now you're running. What part? You're running a Republican primary?
Republican primary. I am primarying an incumbent there. And the reason why is because the people of District 23 have been betrayed. Those are their words that they've told me. The incumbent there has an R in front of his name, but votes D and votes Democrat on these major issues. We're talking about gun control. We're talking about same-sex marriage. We're talking about border security. He did anything and everything that he could to kill these border security bills. And I'm thinking, what in the world is going on? Well, just like I'm a real person, just like you. I'm wondering, why is he doing this? Why is he not representing the people and that put him there? And it's a difficult question to answer, but the facts are the facts. The votes are the votes. That's the way he has voted. And it is very, very, very deceiving to tell the people one thing to their face and then completely do the opposite in Washington, D.C. And as a matter of fact, the Republican Party of Texas censured him 2 months ago in March. They censured him. 17 counties said, we're not going to deal with this. The people have spoken. We're going to censure him. We don't want anything to do with him. We want a new representative. He's still going to run. He's still running. He doesn't care. But I'm going to bring a thing called integrity. Remember that? Where I'm proud of it in my professional life and my personal life. And I want to bring that integrity back to these positions so people could gain faith back in the system. I understand Congress and the low levels of acceptance that they have across this nation, but we need to change that. We need to put real people there that are willing to work hard, that are willing to do what we want them to do. And yes, it's border security, but it's also the economy. It's also education. And I'm very, very much in tune with mental health. I've seen this in my career. I want to do and bring real solutions, not just talk about it anymore.
Well, you know, Victor, I'd love to have you back on. Okay. I'd love to have you back on because we got a lot to talk about. I've, shared with the people that there is a power in prayer. And I thank God that the good Lord saved your life. Sorry about your partner and the things you went through. But, as a deputy police chief said to me years ago, when we question God, why this, why that, the deputy chief used to just say, the wonder of it all, just the wonder of it all. Well, Victor, we're going to have you back. All right. When we're going to go off the air soon, but give me 15 minutes to call you back. Okay?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
There you go, folks. Victor, thank you very much. And God bless you. And thank you for your service and the work you've done to help secure our border and to help secure freedom and liberty, frankly, worldwide by the work you're doing. Thanks again. Thank you. Well, there you go. All right, folks. So there we go. What a story. His partner was killed in action. He survived to tell us all what happened at the border. Real quick, folks, and we're going to wrap it up. I know we went over, but we had a lot to say. The SOS letter campaign, we're still asking you for your SOS letters, but it's going to end September 15th. And the amount of letters we have, the thousands we have, we're going to do what we said we would do with regard to using those letters as the evidence that we need to bring to our congressional representatives to help them understand that they need to address some problems that we believe are threatening our national security. It's going to be up to them to make the decision, but we're going to do our job. We're going to keep our promise. Also, as I said before, folks, I've asked for your help in helping us stay on the air, but I want you to really think about what we're just posting. Pay your bills first. Take care of your family first. I don't want any family member or any bills to be sacrificed. At the end of the day, your family's first. And then if all is well, if you could spare a few dollars, then by all means, you know what? Help us right here at Campaign for America. So if you could assist us, we have on the blue bar down there, you go to patriotdesk.com. You could donate via credit card or PayPal me. Now, folks, I'm going to end the broadcast very, very simply by the words of Reverend Charles Stanley. I know many of you know him. He was one of the greatest pastors in our lifetime. And he said this, and this is for both countries. In fact, this is for countries worldwide, all right, that are looking to continue their fight for freedom and liberty. The time has come for us to pray, believing that the Father can mightily reverse the tide assailing our nations. The truth of the matter is, when we fight our battles on our knees, we win every time. Let freedom ring. God bless you. See you next Thursday. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers.